Welcome to this deep dive, and we're going to be looking at The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk.
Yeah, great book.
It is a really fantastic book. It's one of those books I think that everyone should read at some point in their lives. But we're going to be taking a deep dive into it today and sort of looking at all the different aspects and really trying to unpack some of the things that van der Kolk is talking about.
Yeah, it's such a rich text, and there's just so much in there, and so I'm excited to sort of pick it apart and see, what we can discover.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that really struck me was this idea that it's not just about emotional scars, right? Trauma is like he says the body keeps the score.
Yeah, and he really emphasizes how trauma actually rewires the brain and can manifest physically throughout the body.
So it's not just in your head.
Not at all. It's in your cells. It's in, like, the very fabric of your being.
And I thought one of the most powerful examples he uses is this Vietnam War veteran,
Oh, yeah.
right, who comes home and he's struggling to reconnect with his family. His wife falls into a depression, and then their kids grow up with all this anxiety and insecurity.
It's a beautiful illustration of how trauma isn't just an individual issue. It ripples outwards.
It's contagious almost.
It is, yeah. It's like a virus.
Wow. And so how does this actually happen?
Well, I mean, so much of it comes down to the brain,
Okay.
how trauma impacts the brain.
Makes sense.
You can think of your brain as this sophisticated control center,
Huh?
right? Constantly receiving and processing information. But then trauma comes along and just scrambles the communication system. It throws everything into chaos.
It's like system overload or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why people who've experienced trauma often struggle to regulate their emotions. They have trouble thinking clearly or even forming coherent memories of what happened.
Is there like a specific part of the brain that gets affected, or is it just kind of like a general?
Well, there are three key areas that van der Kolk highlights:
Okay.
the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the prefrontal cortex. And each of these plays a crucial role in how we process and respond to trauma.
Okay, let's break those down then.
Okay, so first we have the amygdala. It's like the brain's smart
Right.
detector.
Okay.
It's constantly scanning for danger, and when it senses a threat, it triggers that fight or flight response.
Makes sense.
But in people with trauma, the amygdala is like stuck on high alert.
Oh, so it's like constantly on edge.
Exactly. They're always scanning for danger, even when they're in safe situations.
That explains why even small things can trigger such a huge reaction in someone who's experienced trauma.
Absolutely. Their alarm bells are always going off.
Wow. And so what about the hippocampus? What does that do?
So the hippocampus is all about memory. It helps us create a timeline for our experiences and make sense of what happened.
Okay.
But trauma can disrupt this process, leaving memories fragmented and jumbled. It's like a puzzle with missing pieces.
So that's why traumatic memories can come back as flashbacks or nightmares.
Exactly. It's like the brain can't file them away properly.
Wow, that's so interesting. And then what was that last one? The prefrontal cortex.
Right. That's the wise decision maker part of our brain.
Okay.
It helps us control impulses, manage our emotions, think clearly under pressure.
So important.
It is, but trauma can knock the prefrontal cortex offline,
Oh, no.
making it difficult to think straight, make good decisions, or even just stay calm when things get tough.
Wow. So this is all starting to make sense now. It's not just psychological. It's like deeply embedded in our neurobiology.
Precisely. And this leads to one of van der Kolk's most important points. He shows how trauma isn't just a story in our heads.
Uh-huh.
It's a physical experience stored in our bodies.
Wait, so it's not just about the brain.
No, it's about the whole system.
Wow.
Think about it. When you're scared or stressed, what happens? Your heart races, your muscles tense up, you might even feel sick to your stomach,
Yeah, that's true.
right? Those physical sensations, if they're associated with a traumatic event, they can become trapped in the body.
Oh, wow. So even years later, someone might still be carrying those physical echoes of that trauma.
Exactly. They might experience chronic pain, digestive issues, or even immune system problems, all stemming from that initial trauma.
So it's not just about remembering. It's like your body is actually remembering.
That's a great way to put it. The body keeps the score.
It does. And this is why van der Kolk argues that simply talking about trauma isn't always enough.
Right.
Healing has to involve the body as well.
Yeah, he dives into some fascinating therapies that address this mind-body connection.
I'm really curious about those.
hmm
What are some of the approaches that he talks about?
Well, one that he highlights is EMDR.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of that?
I have, yeah.
It involves using eye movements to help reprocess traumatic memories.
That sounds a little bit unusual. How does that work?
It is a bit unusual, but the research is quite compelling. It seems to help target those fragmented memories we talked about earlier,
Oh, okay.
allowing them to be integrated in a healthier way.
So instead of just talking about it, you're using these eye movements to help the brain kind of reprocess it in a different way.
Yeah. Exactly. And then there's body work like massage or yoga, which can be incredibly beneficial.
Okay, yeah, those make more sense to me.
Right, because trauma often leads to chronic tension and this disconnection from the body.
Makes sense.
So these approaches help people reconnect with their physical sensations, regain a sense of safety in their own skin.
So it's like retraining both the mind and body to feel safe again.
Precisely. Trauma can trap you in this cage of fear and helplessness.
Yeah.
And these approaches help you break free, reclaim your body and your mind.
So we've talked about this ripple effect of trauma, how it impacts the brain, the body.
Right.
I'm kind of curious about how memories play into all of this, because Kolk talks about this idea of traumatic memory as being a different kind of beast altogether.
It's not like your everyday memories.
Mm-hmm.
Traumatic memories, they can be fragmented, sensory-based, and easily triggered even years after the event.
So it's not like you just remember what happened. It's more like...
It's more like you're reliving it.
Yeah.
You know, you might have flashbacks, nightmares, or even intense physical sensations that make you feel like the trauma is happening all over again.
It's as if the past is intruding on the present.
Exactly. And it's not just flashbacks or nightmares. These memories can resurface as physical sensations too, you know, like a racing heart or shortness of breath, even when there's no immediate danger.
That must be terrifying, knowing that at any moment, a seemingly random trigger could send you spiraling back into that trauma.
It can be. And that's why understanding the nature of traumatic memory is so crucial for healing.
Right, because you can't just pretend it didn't happen.
No, it's not about forgetting. It's about finding ways to reprocess those memories,
Okay.
to integrate them into a coherent narrative, and to reclaim a sense of control over the past.
That makes sense. And I think this all points to something pretty profound, right? Trauma's impact is way more widespread and complex than we often realize. And Kolk really argues that childhood trauma in particular is like a hidden epidemic that's shaping the lives of so many people.
It is a hidden epidemic. And it's heartbreaking to see how those early experiences can have such a lasting effect on someone's life.
So you're saying that experiences of abuse, neglect, or even just like a chaotic home environment during those early years can have consequences that last a lifetime.
Absolutely. It can affect everything from their emotional regulation and relationship patterns to their physical health and even their career choices.
It's like those early experiences create a blueprint that they keep following even if it's causing them pain.
Yeah, it's a really sad cycle and one that can be incredibly difficult to break free from, but The Body Keeps the Score offers hope by showing that it is possible to rewrite those old scripts.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
And so how do we begin to address the impact of this developmental trauma?
Well, Kolk emphasizes the importance of creating safe and supportive environments
Okay.
where individuals feel seen, heard, and validated. And this could be through therapy, through support groups, or even just having those close relationships with people who understand and care.
So it's about fostering that sense of connection and belonging, which is often what's missing in the lives of those who've experienced trauma, especially early on.
Absolutely. It's about helping them rebuild that sense of trust and safety, both within themselves and with others.
So if trauma's impacting both our brains and our bodies, what are some of the practical approaches to healing that Kolk talks about? You know, beyond just traditional talk therapy, he mentions things like mindfulness and other methods.
Yeah, mindfulness is a big one for him. He explains how it helps cultivate a sense of presence and awareness. You know, it allows you to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment.
So instead of getting swept away by those feelings of anxiety or fear, you're learning to kind of step back and observe them without letting them take over.
Exactly. It's like creating a space between you and your reactions, giving you more control over how you respond.
That sounds really powerful, especially for someone who's used to feeling like their emotions are controlling them.
It can be very empowering. And the best part is mindfulness is something anyone can practice.
That's a good point.
There are simple techniques like focusing on your breath or tuning into your senses that can be done anytime, anywhere.
That's encouraging. It means people have some agency in their healing journey. They don't have to wait for a therapist to tell them what to do.
Right. They can start incorporating these practices into their daily lives right now.
And even small, consistent efforts can make a big difference over time.
Absolutely.
This is all so incredibly insightful, but I have to ask, does The Body Keeps the Score offer any hope for those who are struggling with the aftermath of trauma? It can feel so overwhelming and hopeless sometimes.
Absolutely. I think one of the most powerful messages of the book is that healing is possible.
That's good.
It's about recognizing the impact, understanding that brain-body connection, and then exploring the wide range of therapies and practices that are available.
So it's not about just getting over it or pretending it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's about finding those tools and those resources that can support your healing journey.
Exactly. And The Body Keeps the Score offers a roadmap for that journey. It reminds us that even in the face of immense suffering, recovery is within reach.
That's a message I think we all need to hear. That we're not alone in this, and that there are things we could do to help ourselves and to help others who are struggling.
Absolutely. It's about fostering that sense of hope and empowerment. Recognizing that we have the capacity to heal and to thrive even after experiencing trauma.
Before we move on, I want to touch on one more point that really struck me. Vander Kolk mainly focuses on individual trauma.
Right.
But what about the collective trauma that's experienced by entire communities? How do events like war or natural disasters or even just systemic oppression affect society as a whole?
That's a crucial question and something to really consider as you continue exploring these ideas.
Yeah, because it's not just about individuals,
Mhm.
right? Trauma can ripple outwards and impact entire groups of people.
Exactly. And collective trauma can be just as pervasive and impactful as individual trauma.
Wow.
It can leave lasting scars on communities and even shape future generations.
So while The Body Keeps the Score dives deep into individual healing, it also invites us to think about the broader implications of trauma on a societal level.
Precisely. It's like understanding individual trauma is a vital step towards addressing the collective wounds that shape our world.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful exploration of The Body Keeps the Score. It's clear that trauma's impact extends far beyond the initial event. It affects the brain, the body, and even our relationships with ourselves and others. But as we've discussed, healing is possible. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve deeper into those specific therapies and practices that can support this journey of recovery.
So we've seen how trauma can really leave its mark, on the brain and the body.
Yeah.
But now let's explore, the various paths to healing.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think is so fascinating about The Body Keeps the Score is how van der Kolk goes beyond just traditional talk therapy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. When people think of therapy, they often picture someone lying on a couch
Yeah.
talking about their past. But this book really expands that view.
It does. It's not just about rehashing the trauma. It's about retraining the brain and the body to feel safe again.
Okay.
And van der Kolk explores a variety of approaches,
Yeah.
some of which might seem a little surprising at first.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, take EMDR, for instance.
Okay.
It involves using eye movements to help reprocess traumatic memories.
I know it sounds kind of unusual, but I've heard about it.
It is a bit unusual,
Yeah.
but the research is actually quite compelling.
Really?
Yeah, it seems to help target those fragmented memories that we talked about earlier,
Right. Yeah.
allowing them to be integrated in a healthier way.
So instead of just talking about the trauma, you're using these eye movements to help the brain kind of process it differently.
Exactly. Think of it like, providing those missing puzzle pieces
Okay.
and helping the brain create a more coherent narrative.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Are there other therapies that kind of work directly with the body?
Absolutely. Body work like massage or yoga can be incredibly beneficial.
Okay. Yeah, those make more sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And trauma often leads to chronic tension, right? And this disconnection from the body.
Makes sense.
So these approaches help people to reconnect with their physical sensations,
Yeah.
and regain a sense of safety in their own skin.
It makes sense if trauma gets stored in the body, then healing has to involve the body as well.
Exactly.
It's not just about changing our thoughts.
Right.
It's about shifting our physical experience, too.
Absolutely. And there's growing evidence to support the effectiveness of these body-based therapies in trauma recovery.
This is also fascinating.
Yeah.
Are there any methods that people can kind of use in their everyday lives to help manage the effects of trauma?
Wait, van der Kolk is a big proponent of mindfulness.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah. He explains how mindfulness helps to cultivate a sense of presence and awareness,
Okay.
allowing individuals to observe their thoughts and feelings without judgment.
So instead of getting swept away by, anxiety or fear,
Right.
you're learning to kind of observe those feelings without getting completely overwhelmed.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly empowering for someone who's, used to feeling like their emotions are controlling them.
It sounds like a really powerful tool for anyone, but especially for those who are struggling with the aftermath of trauma.
And the best part is mindfulness is something anyone can practice.
That's a good point.
There are simple techniques like focusing on your breath or tuning into your senses that can be done anytime, anywhere.
That's encouraging. It means people have some agency in their healing journey. They don't have to wait for a therapist to tell them what to do.
Exactly.
They can start incorporating these practices into their daily lives right now.
And even small, consistent efforts can make a big difference over time.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of healing, I'm kind of curious to learn more about the long-term effects of developmental trauma.
Okay.
We touched on this earlier, but I'd like to kind of dig a bit deeper because Kolk paints a pretty sobering picture of how childhood trauma can shape a person's life.
It's true. The experiences we have in childhood, especially during those crucial developmental years, have a profound impact on how our brains are wired.
So you're saying that those early experiences of abuse, neglect, or even just a chaotic home environment
Right.
can have long-lasting consequences.
Absolutely. It can affect everything you know, from emotional regulation and relationship patterns to physical health and even career choices.
Wow, it's like those early experiences create this blueprint that they keep following,
Yeah.
even if it's causing them pain.
It is a heartbreaking cycle
Yeah.
and one that's often difficult to break.
Yeah.
But The Body Keeps the Score offers hope by showing us that it is possible to rewrite those old scripts.
So how do we begin to address the impact of developmental trauma?
Well, Kolk emphasizes the importance of creating safe and supportive environments
Okay.
where individuals feel seen, heard, and validated.
Yeah.
And this could be through therapy, through support groups, or even just having, close relationships with people who understand and care.
So it's about fostering that sense of connection and belonging,
Right.
which is often what's missing in the lives of those who've experienced trauma,
Exactly.
especially early on.
It's about helping people rebuild that sense of trust and safety,
Yeah.
both within themselves and with others.
One thing that really resonates with me from the book is this idea that healing isn't just about fixing what's broken.
Okay.
It's about discovering new possibilities, new ways of being in the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The Body Keeps the Score doesn't offer a simple cure for trauma.
Yeah.
It offers a path towards growth and transformation and even a deeper sense of meaning and purpose.
It's about reclaiming our lives not just from the trauma itself,
Right.
but from the limitations it has imposed on us.
Exactly. It's about moving from a place of surviving to a place of thriving.
And that's a journey worth taking.
It is.
This has been a really insightful exploration of the healing aspects of The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
And it's clear that there are many paths to recovery. And what works for one person might not work for another.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
Yeah. It's about finding what resonates with you, what feels right for your body and mind,
Right.
and what supports your unique journey of healing.
Now, I'm kind of curious about something else that Kolk discusses, which is the nature of traumatic memories.
Okay.
He explains how they operate so differently from everyday memories, often resurfacing as flashbacks, nightmares, or even physical sensations.
That's right. Traumatic memories are often fragmented and disorganized,
Okay.
making it difficult for the brain to process them properly.
Yeah.
And they can be triggered by seemingly unrelated events.
Really?
Sound, smells, or even specific times of year.
So like a scent, a song,
Uh-huh.
even a certain place could bring back a flood of traumatic memories.
Exactly. And these memories aren't just mental images, They
Right.
can involve really powerful physical sensations, making it feel as if the trauma is happening all over again.
That must be so disorienting and distressing. Knowing that at any moment, a seemingly harmless trigger could send you spiraling back into that fear and pain.
It can be, and that's why understanding the nature of traumatic memory is so important for healing.
Yeah, because you can't just, pretend it didn't happen.
No, it's not about forgetting. It's about finding ways to reprocess those memories
Okay.
in a safe and healthy way.
So how do we do that? How do we help people kind of work through those fragmented and often terrifying memories?
Well, Kolk explores a range of therapies that can help with this process. EMDR, which we mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
is one approach that specifically targets those fragmented memories,
Right.
helping to integrate them into a more coherent narrative.
And are there other methods that can help people kind of manage those intrusive thoughts or flashbacks?
Absolutely. Mindfulness practices, for instance, can be incredibly helpful. They can help individuals develop a greater sense of awareness and control over their thoughts and feelings.
So instead of feeling completely overwhelmed by those memories,
Right.
they're learning to observe them without judgment, without letting them take over.
Exactly. It's about creating a space between the trigger and the reaction,
Yeah.
giving individuals more choices in how they respond.
This all points to something I think really crucial,
Mm.
right? Healing from trauma It's not a linear process,
No.
and there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
It's a journey
Yeah.
that requires patience and compassion and a willingness to explore different avenues of healing.
And it's a journey that's best navigated with support,
Yeah.
whether it's a therapist, a support group, or even just close friends and family who understand.
Yeah,
Having that network of caring individuals can make all the difference.
absolutely. It's about creating that sense of safety and belonging, which
Right.
is often what's missing in the lives of those who've experienced trauma.
Precisely. It's about rebuilding that foundation of trust and connection, both within ourselves and with others.
Well, this has been an incredible exploration of the many layers of healing presented in the years. The body keeps the score.
Yeah,
And it's clear that trauma's impact is so far-reaching,
it is.
affecting not just our individual lives,
Right.
but our families, our communities, and even society as a whole.
Absolutely.
But amidst the complexities of trauma, the book offers this message of hope,
It does.
reminding us that recovery is possible and that there are many paths towards reclaiming our lives and living with greater peace and wholeness.
Absolutely. And in the final part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
we'll explore some of the broader implications of van der Kolk's work,
Okay.
including his call for a more trauma-informed society.
I'm really excited to delve into that
Yeah.
because it's clear that understanding trauma, it's not just about individual healing.
Oh.
It's about creating a more just and compassionate world for everyone. Stay tuned for more insights in the final part of our deep dive into The Body Keeps the Score. We've been talking about, how trauma affects us as individuals, right? Like rewiring our brains and leaving these imprints on our bodies and shaping our memories. But I'm really curious to kind of explore the societal implications of all of this. What does it mean to create a trauma-informed society, as van der Kolk suggests?
It's a really powerful idea. It's urging us to move beyond just treating those individual cases of trauma and recognize that it's really a widespread issue that's woven into the fabric of our communities, our institutions, our whole society, really.
So it's kind of like shifting our perspective from, what's wrong with this person to what happened to this person.
Exactly. It's about understanding that people's behavior, their struggles, their pain often stem from experiences they've had, particularly traumatic experiences, and a trauma-informed approach asks us to consider that, to consider how those past experiences might be influencing what we're seeing in the present.
It's like taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture instead of just focusing on the symptoms.
Right, and that reminds me of something that van der Kolk says about how our current diagnostic systems often miss the mark when it comes to trauma.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty critical of that, isn't he?
He's concerned about this over-reliance on labels, like PTSD or anxiety disorder, without really addressing the root cause, which is often trauma.
Right, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Exactly. Those labels can be helpful, for communication and for research purposes, but they don't always capture the full complexity of someone's experience.
So how do we start building a more trauma-informed society? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think it starts with education and awareness.
Yeah.
The more we understand about trauma, its impact and the pathways to healing, the better equipped we are to create those supportive environments that people need to heal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's about spreading the word, getting people talking about trauma and making it okay to ask for help.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, mental health professionals or therapists. It's about all of us. Think about our schools, our healthcare systems, our legal system, even our workplaces. Imagine if all of these institutions operated with a deeper understanding of trauma.
That would be huge. Would really change the way we approach so many issues.
It would. And, it's not just about these big systemic changes. It's also about those small everyday interactions, like listening with empathy, being mindful of our language, and challenging the stigma that still surrounds trauma.
Yeah, that's so important because everyone's been touched by trauma in some way, whether it's directly or through someone they love.
Right. And one of the things that I find so inspiring about The Body Keeps the Score is this emphasis on our innate capacity for healing. Despite the profound and often devastating effects of trauma, van der Kolk really reminds us that our brains and our bodies are wired to recover.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from the darkness of trauma, but he also shines a light on that resilience that resides within us all.
Right. It's a message of hope and possibility, reminding us that even in the face of immense suffering, we can find ways to heal, to reconnect, and to create a more fulfilling life for ourselves and for generations to come.
And that's ultimately what it's all about, isn't it? Finding those pathways to healing and supporting each other along the way.
Absolutely. And then, The Body Keeps the Score is more than just a book about trauma. It's a call to action, a blueprint for building a world where healing is not just possible, but it's embraced.
I love that.
Hmm.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a profound sense of gratitude for the work that Bessel van der Kolk has done in bringing this topic to light.
Me too.
He's really challenged us to rethink our understanding of trauma and its impact, and he's offered us a roadmap for creating a more compassionate and healing-centered world.
It's been a privilege to explore this groundbreaking work with you.
Likewise.
And I hope our listeners are inspired to delve deeper into these ideas and continue their own journeys of understanding and healing.
Absolutely. And if you've been touched by trauma, either personally or through someone you love, know that you're not alone. There are resources available, and healing is possible. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep reaching out for support. Until next time, keep diving deep.